So you just bought your first Nikon entry-level DSLR, and the probability of it is that it came with the 18-55mm lens. And in this video, I'm going to show you my overall thoughts on this kit lens. So straight out of the box, this is the 18-55mm 3.5 to 5.6 G. The G stands for gilded on the back of the lens. VR version 2. And I know the newer models of Nikon has the newer AFP lens, where essentially they're reducing costs and they actually take away the autofocus and manual settings, which I think is a big wrong direction on Nikon's end. But this little fella over here, although might not be the best lens for your Nikon camera, I think this still has a lot of potential that people often overlook. Like, yes, one of the major cons of it is that it has a varying aperture. In other words, if you zoom in, the aperture actually goes smaller, hence the 3.5 to 5.6. So for example, if I zoom in all the way to 55mm, the biggest that the aperture rate can go is 5.6. Hence you lose 2 stops of light versus a varying aperture where if I constantly zoom, I don't have to worry about losing light or still having that shallow depth of field. As you can see here, I'm still at 2.8. And if I zoom out, I'm still at 2.8. I would say the second con of using this 18-55mm lens is that of its build. Yes, it's cheaper because it's usually bundled with your Nikon camera, your entry level, whether that's a 5600, 7000. It usually comes with this lens and it usually can retail for $100. And the overall build of it is a cheap kind of plastic-like feel. There isn't really any metal to this so-called glass. And overall, it's very for budget-friendly price. As you can feel it, it's not the most impressive looking lens. So one of the reasons I actually like this lens is that it's very light. If you ever upgrade to a heavier glass, anything that's on the higher end spectrum, whether that's let's say a 2.8 lens, for example, that I'm using right now, 70-50 Sigma, is very heavy. This is a very compact lens and it's very light because of its cheaper build quality. And another pro of this lens is that it allows you, unlike the other AFP model is that it lets you have autofocus as well as manual on the side, as well as vibration reduction, which is so crucial on an entry-level Nikon camera. So you can see here, you can turn VR on and off, as well as autofocus. And I guess another thing about a con about this lens is that there's this button here and it has that sort of retractable feel when it comes to a zoom lens, and it does get a little clunky at times, but you'll be surprised what this lens can actually do. So as you can see right now, I'm actually recording on the kit lens, and before I actually was recording on this 70-50 Sigma lens 2.8, which is a lot heavier. But switching back to this lens, it made me realize the autofocus system in this isn't the greatest, and it's kind of noisy if you can hear it. So one of the reasons I want to talk about this kit lens is because a lot of people, even when I first started freelancing videography and making videos for clients, is that when I showed them my camera, they're like, "Oh, is that the camera that you're using?" And my caveat to that is that I'm gonna overlay this entire music video that I did strictly on a newer stabilizer and this Nikon D5200. And guess what lens I used? This kit lens. 18-55mm, varying 3.5 to 5.6 version 2 kit lens. And this entire music video was filmed on that setup. I didn't use any other lens. That was the entire setup that I used. So the moral of this video is that yes, you can spend thousands, hundreds of thousands on a better lens, better camera body, which overall increased your image and your video capabilities. But what matters more is that who's behind that camera. Do you know composition? Do you know how to use proper lighting? Do you know the things of the basics of understanding editing and how you can make something so simple look freaking awesome? So that was my overall impressions of this lens. This is the first lens that I used, and I used it to the best of my abilities until I needed an upgrade. But since I didn't have the budget at that time, I learned the ins and outs and how to use a kit lens and how to use a Nikon D5200 for camera use. Even though it's not primarily used for cameras and videos, use with what you got. Make it work. Don't let money be the sole indicator of whether or not you can use or want to film videos. Because at the end of the day, if you want to make videos, you got a camera, press record, use what you got. My name is Peter. You're watching Broke Visionary Collective. We all start from nothing, but you can always create something.